about the noise, where legends rise. From the clouds to the crowd, this is Crowd, where Africa meets opportunity, where music meets magic.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to our L&D series. And as usual, I'm your host, Elias Ayedele Numa. And today we have a very interesting topic, and that's demystifying music publishing for African creators. Now, this is a very, very serious topic. And we got an amazing person to talk about this topic, to give us a very wide overview of it. This person we're talking about is an entertainment and media lawyer with expertise in legal and commercial structures behind the films, television, music. This is like very amazing. And one more thing, so she's at Ebony Life Group. She advises on production, distribution, international collaborations, and leads on music licensing and rights clearance. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the one, the only, the amazing, the stupendous Kofoworola Eze. How you doing today?
I'm great. I'm fine. Thank you for having me. In fact, your introduction, I'm going to go and use it to collect money in the bank because I am not aware of all of these sweet things.
Really amazing to have you here one more time. So before we get right to it, our topic today is music publishing for African creators. Because if you're familiar with the creative industry, you realize that these days we have a lot of intellectual property. That's the word for things that belong to you, that comes from your mind, anything that is worth, don't let me talk too much. That's the work of our guest for today. All right, so I'll give you the floor. Just give us a brief introduction into this whole topic, or title rather, so that people can have a grasp, a view of what we're talking about.
So, you correctly said intellectual property is the legal right that is given to creators of work that comes from the mind. So, from creation of the mind to brands, it all covers intellectual property. And there are different forms of intellectual property called IP for short. So we have copyright, we have trademark, we have trade secrets, we have industrial designs, patents, depending on your jurisdiction or the country that you find yourself. Some jurisdictions are very particular about a particular intellectual property more than another jurisdiction. And by jurisdiction, countries or territories. So that's just like an introduction, a brief overview of what it's all about.
All right, thank you so much for that. So we are seeing a lot of things here. We're seeing music publishing, we're seeing African creators, which means that maybe prior to this period, we've not particularly had some structures in our creative industry. So I think I want to ask, how has the evolution been like from times before now in terms of the creative industry or space?
I think I'll beg to differ in terms of us not necessarily having structure. Structure is very relative, but the truth is that we have always had laws in place. People have always been signing contracts right from inception. But I think what I would just say is that the awareness or the level of IP is more known now. People can capitalize more on it because it's now more democratized. Everybody now have an access to it, right? So it's easier now. People know their rights. People are beginning to get aware of their rights, the forms of royalties that they get. So it's easier. And even some of the laws that we have in Nigeria now are being reformed. Way before now, the intellectual property or the copyright laws we're using was the one of far back as 2004 until it was just recently changed, I think in 2022 or so. So it just goes to show how aware people are becoming of their rights. People are becoming more self-aware. Our songs, the kind of our African music, Afrobeat is becoming global, right? African music is becoming global. And of course, if something is becoming global, there is need to also incorporate global standards of how things are being done. So yeah, that's just what it is now. and people are becoming more aware daily, daily. I'm sure you always see there's always one problem or the other. There's always one talent coming out to talk about how somebody has infringed on their rights or whatnot. So people are becoming more aware. There are more people in the space teaching others, teaching creators. So yeah.
All right. So, from a lawyer standpoint, when exactly
Mm-hmm.
does copyright begin for an African songwriter or artist,
Mm-hmm.
and why is it critical for
Mm.
creators to understand that their work has
Mm.
legal and financial value from the moment of creation?
So copyright starts from the moment a work is being created. So when I mean a work is being created, so a work is being created originally, so no other creation of it has ever happened. It's an original work and it's being fixed in a tangible form. So tangible form I mean is probably recorded in a CD, written down on your laptop, so in a form that can be transferred to somebody else. That's all. You don't need to file any application to employ copyright on your work the moment it's being created. However, if you want additional security or evidence of ownership of your work, then it's usually advised that you go ahead and register your work with the relevant um, copyright commission in your jurisdiction. So if you're in Nigeria, for instance, it's the copyright commission here in Nigeria and every other place around the world. So usually it's immediately. And why is this important? You need to understand copyright because of the financial implication of it. If you do not understand how your rights works, you can't earn from it. How are you able to explore the different revenues that come in from your rights if you do not own it by
Right.
yourself, or if you do, if the, or the ownership is not clear?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's how it
So,
works. Yeah.
you made a very interesting point. You said
Mm-hmm.
if you want to take extra steps, you can
Mm.
go ahead and get the appropriate body. So,
Yeah.
does that explain that registering your work with that body protects your work worldwide or just in that geographical territory?
So copyright is jurisdictional. So it's
Okay.
just that territory. But there are ways that you can protect your rights globally. File a copyright, but it depends. There are different forms of global registration. For instance, there's one called the Benin Convention,
Right.
and that one is usually it's a convention that is signed by different countries that are
Country.
members of that particular treaty. So the moment your country falls under it, I think it's over 150 countries or over, I can't really remember, but the
Okay.
moment you file under that particular convention, it protects you in all those jurisdictions. So
Right.
those are like additional ways to provide
Right.
additional security to your work. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So many artists unknowingly sign away
Mm-hmm.
publishing rights and in
Yeah.
record deals and management agreements. And we have
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot of this in play, right? So
Yeah.
what are the most common contractual mistakes that you've seen, especially in these contracts? And how can
Mm.
young creators protect themselves legally before it's too late?
So if there's something that I always say is, of course, I'm going to say the obvious one, which is get a lawyer, right? It's very
Right.
obvious. But then again, it's also important to point out that it might seem like, you're just trying to have a conversation where you're just speaking from the point of the business side, but it's always advisable that you don't go into contracts desperate. I know that you might look at it from the angle of, oh, this guy just wants to break through, oh, this guy just wants to do something. But the truth is that a percentage of nothing is actually like a percentage of nothing is worse than a 1% of something, obviously,
Yes.
right? So it's always very important that apart from getting a lawyer that is well grounded in the music industry, it's also important that you are not desperate to sign, because it's when you're not desperate to enter into a deal that your eyes are clearly opened, right? And another thing that is very important is creators should try as much as possible to try to maintain ownership. Now, I'm not saying that at the point of signing a record label or maybe a publishing deal, they wouldn't want to maybe get a percentage. Obviously, these guys are giving you money, so they want a stake. But
Right.
always try to push for things like reversion. Don't always, give out your rights for life. There's a very funny clause that I always see. which I'm also guilty of. I'm a lawyer because if I'm on the label side sometimes, right, I want to
Right.
protect the label. And this clause is just, essentially, you're getting right for this particular, or you're trying to get right for this particular work throughout, it says throughout the life of the copyright in all territories. It even says in the universe. That means that if tomorrow Elon Musk comes and says he wants to create music in mass, they already own the rights to that. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
it's very important that lawyers, creatives are very intentional about limiting certain rights. Some of these things can be like linguals or like usual wordings in contracts, but they have deeper meaning if you actually materialize it. So as much as possible, creators should try as much as possible to limit the amount of rights that they're actually giving out when they're trying to sign some of these publishing agreements.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, so this next question is in like three facets. So, in your
Okay.
legal experience, what practical steps should African creators take to ensure that their publishing rights are properly registered? Then also, how do entertainment lawyers come into play and all of these, publishing administrators? And then what exactly just like, I feel like it's a very broad question.
So it's not enough for you to say that you own a percentage, or this is my right, or this is my percentage of ownership in my publishing. Another very important step is for you to know how to even collect it, because you might own a percentage of nothing or own a percentage and you don't know how to collect. So
Right.
usually you are supposed to either sign with a publisher that represents you and helps you to collect your publishing rights, all forms of your publishing income, or you can be self-published. So you can start by registering with a performance rights organization in your territory. So, who are performance rights organizations, or what is performance rights organizations? These are organizations in like different countries or different territories that are equipped with the authority to collect a right called performance royalties. So, collect your performance royalties on your behalf. And the performance royalty is one of the royalties that are derived from your publishing. So take for instance in Nigeria, the appropriate organization to register with is MCSN, Music Right Copyright of Nigeria. Now, aside from MCSN, there are other forms of organizations that you can register with globally. So you're not just missing out on collecting your royalties in Nigeria, you're also connecting with international performance rights organizations. So we're talking
Right.
of the BMIs, we're talking of the ASCAP, we're talking of CESAC, depending on the country, right, that you are in. So be it the US, UK, some of these countries. Then you can also do something called a sub-publishing deal. So apart from being signed to a publisher in Nigeria, lawyer as a creator, you can also try to sign an agreement with publishers that are also abroad, right? So that you're not missing out on any money anywhere your music is being played.
Right.
Now,
Right.
there are also like rights management organizations online that you can also sign with, just so that they help you to collect your royalties. And most of all these people, of course, they will collect your royalties for you with maybe like a fee. It could be like a commission on what comes in for you. But the most important thing is that you are collecting something. Because if you are trying not to give out a percentage because you want to own everything, you just realize that you're not collecting anything, right?
Right.
So it's also important to do all of that. Then for entertainment lawyers, we are very close knitted, so we always like we know each other. And also it's always advisable for lawyers to also try as much as possible to network with lawyers from other territories. So that way, as you are protecting the rights of an artist or a creator in Nigeria, you are also having conversations with a lawyer in the US or in the UK or in Asia, for instance, and you people are able to come together to protect the rights of your clients. So relationships very important, and education and knowledge is also a very important way
Right.
in
Right.
ensuring
Right.
that these rights are being collected. Yeah.
I feel like we've broken down this topic already in, in a very short while. I mean, like we've mentioned a whole lot of stuff just in like a few minutes. I'm trying to like recap and see. We've basically talked about what publishing rights are. We've talked about the African creative industry and how it has evolved for a short while now, and how you have to protect your works. We mentioned how you need a lawyer in ensuring that you don't miss out. We also talked about performance. I said performance. Publishing rights, administrators. We talked about BMI. We talked about other PROs. We talked about. I think we talked about that also. All right. So this might just be my final question. I still feel like in Nigeria, publishing has not particularly taken a very good shape. And the reason I'm saying this, aside from even just publishing, performance rights and all this, it feels like Nigeria is still very much behind. I was privileged to study how the CSN has been operating, and it feels like it's just like they are just getting a wing over it, and they're just, okay. It's not particularly there. I don't know. What exactly do you think is like going on? What do you think can help?
Well, to be honest, I think that we are not where we used to be as it relates to publishing.
Right.
Secondly, I would also say that that's part of the reasons why conversations like this conversation we're having is very important in the industry, because we need to create more awareness. People need to know. If people don't know about something or an opportunity, there's no how they can benefit from it. So it's very important at this point that we continue to champion educating creatives or educating music owners or creators to understand that, okay, they have their rights in this publishing, or they have their rights in this is the kind of rights they have for their song. Now, I would also assume that some people don't even understand that they need to register some of these rights. Take, for instance, or register some of these points. And even when they do, their metadata, so the information about what they upload online, or the metadata on their songs, they're not even accurate enough for, and even if you go ahead to register, if your metadata is not even accurate enough, you will not be able to earn. So these are some of the issues that we still haven't gotten properly, right? And I would also say that maybe there are not a lot of executives, but a lot are already springing up. That's the truth. I wanted to say there are not a lot of executives, but the truth is that a lot of executives are already springing up. If you look back as far back as 5-10 years ago, compared to the amount of people in the industry now, it's we are now a sizable amount of people. So the only thing we can do now is just continue to champion educating creatives, continue to champion that, and that's the only way this knowledge can go around. That's the only way, because our music is global already, so we need to move with that pace. Very important.
I think the thing that happened was many people thought that the pinnacle of the music industry was being the artist that shuts down the stages, everybody's watching you perform live. And I think there has now become a shift, and everybody's now seeing that, that is even like the riskiest part. There are parts where you can just sit down and be collecting some cash, and you're not in everybody's eyes. So I feel like the awareness has been rising truly. But I still feel like we need more people, right? We need more people.
Yeah,
and I think
I agree.
I really am hoping that the copyright structures in Nigeria go very perfectly, because I'm currently writing on that, and I'm seeing that we still have, in as much as we're talking about it, we're seeing South Africa, we're seeing US, they are very much ahead of us, man, really ahead. And we are just trying to catch up. I really hope that we do in like the next couple.
We need to be more intentional about those laws and even enforcement. Because even when problems happen, how do we even enforce some of these rights? We need to be very intentional about that.
Thank you so much. It's been really amazing talking with you. I don't know if you have parting words for those watching.
Same here. Well, I think I would just say, do the right thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, so I think one thing that I would just say is that for every music creator, every music owner that is here, ensure that you get knowledge of the business that you are in. Ensure that you get the services of a lawyer or a manager or just somebody, a business manager, to put you through. Also, always ensure at the end of it all that know that ownership or right ownership is something that should be retained, as opposed to, just giving it all for life. Because the truth is that your property is the only thing that can become your assets, right? So it's also very important that these are key takeaways, and also always involve a lawyer when you are trying to negotiate your deals.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was really amazing speaking with you. We talked about demystifying
Nice.
African creators, right. Oh, I mean, I'm realizing that we just talked about the music industry. I don't know if, well, I mean, I feel like it's applicable to everyone.
But okay, we're one-on-one. Yeah, one-on-one.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ckrowd Africa, and I mean, we talk about a lot of music business info. We talk about industry issues, industry professionals. We talk about how they come in and how they bridge the gaps. So thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you again in our next video. Peace out.